Okay, welcome guys. This is the GameKeeper project. Now in this project, you're going to cover a number of different new concepts, things like classes and 2D arrays. This is mostly targeted to the beginning of year 12, so you have already built your first project in your assignment last year. You have already watched all of the series of videos on the Batman utility belt and the Hello World videos, and you've successfully been able to construct those. So the GameKeeper project, as I said, is quite in depth, but this time I don't get you to create everything from scratch. Because you did all of that work in the Batman and the Hello World projects, this time I provided a template in the interest of just speeding up a bit of your development time. So it just ensures that you've all got buttons and horizontal scroll bars and pictures and all that kind of stuff already prepared for you. So that we can really just focus on the coding and what's present in it today. So what you'll see is that we've got the GameKeeper as a main splash page, but there's a whole bunch of other solutions that have been generated for this project. So things like the decryptor, the snake, texting, and so forth. Don't worry too much about these C# ones just yet. We haven't focused on them just at this point, and we will get to those eventually. But for this project today, we're focused mostly on just getting the main template set up. To give you an idea about what this project is going to do, if I just click on play, you'll see that the project actually loads up using this as my main splash page. And I've got a scroll bar that's going to move up and down, and that's going to highlight or de-highlight these buttons. You can see right now they don't work, but when I click on triangle, it's going to open up another simple program. If I close that and I move down to the scroll bar, basically you're moving the idea between easy level programs and harder level ones. So we're going to work on a whole bunch of switch statements, if conditions, a lot of different various things. Bear in mind, as always, that I'm going to show you things that are not always the most efficient. Sometimes I try to show you things just so that I can show you how to do something in a different way. Okay, so before we start, let's just make sure that you've got the GameKeeper template. So remember, you can download the template from Canvas or from the Google Drive files. Simply put, you just download the GameKeeper template, and then when you've opened it up, you click on the GameKeeper solution. And within that file, you will see all of these different programs. However, if you were to click on the code for them, just do that now, you will see that some codes are there. I've tried to keep almost all of the comments there present for you, but most of the code is now gone. So this is where we're going to do most of the coding, but I have left some in there. Now, if the coding that's in there already, if it's there, it means it's because it's been covered in another lesson. So I've already shown you how to move between one form to another, how to click on the GameKeeper and have the snake form appear, how to close it, go back to GameKeeper, and so forth. Okay, and if you've forgotten how to do that, go back and watch the Batman utility lessons. That's what they're all there for. But what you'll see is, if I was to click on my texting program, then you'll see once again that if I click on my code for that, you should see that some of the stuff is already there, like the exit, because I showed you that in the past as well as the ability to move back and forth between the files. It was there somewhere. Okay, so I'm going to focus today on the GameKeeper, and there's a couple of things we're going to do. So if I just load up my the form window again, okay, so that's this one here. First thing we're going to do is we're actually going to target creating a little bit of an animation for this little guy. Now you probably recognize this character as Jigsaw, or Jigsaw's puppet, I beg your pardon, I should say, from the movies. If you have seen the movies, you'll notice that the eyes flash. So what I've given you in the template file, if you were to click on the project and look in resources, you would actually see that there's a character called Billy and there's a character called Billy Eyes. And looking very closely, you can see that the slight difference is that the eyes are red in the Billy Eyes image and they're not in the Billy. So to be able to create the effect that they're going to be flashing on and off, we're simply going to make it switch between the two pictures. So one on, one off, one on, one off. And we're going to set a timer so that it happens in a sort of sinister looking tone. Now, because we're only using two pictures, we're actually going to create a state of concepts so that the computer knows to keep switching between them. And as you know, by using two concepts only, I beg my 2 states only, we can create a binary variable to do that. Okay, so a Boolean variable to do that. So that's the first thing we're going to focus on. Okay, so I'm just going to move these out of the way. I might try to get my code just a little bit bigger. Some people like to be able to view quite easily. And we're going to start by creating our variable. As I said, I've got the comments there ready for you, so you know where you've got a rough idea about where things should appear. Okay, so I'm going to create 2 variables. The first one is called a Boolean, and I'm going to call that swap Billy, and I'm going to set the first value to be equal to true. Now my second variable is a string, and I'll explain that a little bit later. That's going to be called difficult, string difficult. Now it basically is going to make it so that the game is harder and easier so that we choose different values. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be working on is setting the timer so that our characters move in the right sequence. So you can see that I've got an image called new image. So I need to create a new concept of an image, and this one is quite simply image, and I'm going to call it IMG Billy. And that one is called IMG Billy there. It is underlined right now. Basically, it's just saying you created a variable that you haven't used, which is not an issue at all. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to focus on these 2 comments that you've got here. We've got if the Billy eyes swap to Billy, and if Billy swap to Billy eyes. So basically that means if it's the character without the red eyes, swap it to the one that does have red eyes, and if it's the one that has red eyes, swap it to the one that doesn't have red eyes. So we're going to create 2 instances now, 2 simple structures. So if swap Billy, now remember, if you don't put in a equals true or equals false when you're talking about an if condition, the question automatically defaults to is it true. So if swap Billy equals true, we want IMG Billy to be equal to properties dot resources dot Billy. Should be a capital. Okay, and semicolon. Oh no, it was lowercase. Big pardon. Cool. So remember that line there is pointing to this folder, which has popped up in another window. Hang on a second. Which has popped up in the GameKeeper resources folder. So it's referring to these 2 little guys there. All right. So if it was that, we change to this character now, and then we change the state of the Boolean variable. So if it was true, we change it to the other character, and now we set it to be false. Let's get those down a bit. All right, now you probably guessed that we want something slightly similar to go in here, and that'd be right. However, we don't want to do another if condition because basically if this one was true, we don't want to then have to test again. What we want to do is we want to just skip that section if we did make that test. However, if the test failed, we want to then ask. So that's much better to use an else now, which means we're going to do the same thing. So I'm actually just going to copy those 2 phrases or those 2 lines of code, which for some reason took an inordinately long amount of time to just do a copy. And we want to change it to eyes. Okay, very simple concept. And now, once we've chosen which one we want to actually do, we need to set the image to be the one that's actually in the picture box. So pick Billy is going to, pick Billy dot image is going to be equal to our Boolean variable result, which is image Billy. Okay, and if you weren't sure where I got pick Billy from, well, that's simply the name of this object file. So when I click on this object, you can see that I've got the names down there. If you've forgotten what I'm talking about with regards to object names and all that kind of stuff, then please make sure you go and review all of your previous work because where that was all covered in the Batman projects. So you've got the pick image file there now. I'm just tidying up my code a little bit. Make sure you are always focusing on getting your code nice and neat because it does make it easier, especially when you start to move on to your major project. All right, next one is the VSB difficulty scroll. So what does that mean? Well, this project here has a scroll bar. Now, as we move up and down this scroll bar, we want these buttons to become enabled or disabled depending on where they are in the scroll bar. So before we move on to that, I just want to point out some of the values in our scroll bar. So you can see right now I have set it to be at 0, which is at the top, and it has small change set to 1 and a maximum value of 10. So basically we're counting from 0 up to 10, and we've got states from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so basically wherever they fall into the range, so something along the lines of 0 to 2 is going to be triangle, 3 to 5 is going to be decryptor, 6 to 8 is going to be texting, and above that we're going to have snake. Now you can change whatever values you want to alter it so that difficulty appears right up here if you chose to, but I'm going to make it pretty obvious where they appear right now. So first thing we need to do is we need to check the difficulty level. So I'm going to have an if condition, VSB, that's my vertical scroll bar, and I want the value to be checked if it's greater than 6. Okay, now if it is greater than 6, I want difficult, which is our string variable you may recall earlier, as extreme. Okay, next we're going to have an else. Now up the top we saw that we had one else, but this time we've got more than one response. We've got if it's extreme, hard, medium, or easy. So I've got 4 possible things. I need to do else if, else, so that it goes through all the possible options. So I'm going to copy this one again. So I've got VSB difficulty, and instead of being above 6, I'm going to check that it's above 4 now. Open up my, just push enter somehow. Open up my new brackets. Not sure how I just did that. Okay, and I want difficult to be equal to hard. Oops, quotation marks. There we go. Tidying up these things. I'm not sure why they're doing that. There we go. That's better. Okay, so else if VSB difficulty dot value greater than 4, else if. Now I'm going to copy that whole section there, paste it again, and this one is going to be greater than 1, and the difficulty level this time will be medium. And then finally, we don't need to now test if it's greater than 0, because if it's not greater than 6, not greater than 4, not greater than 1, it must just be less than that. So we simply just say else difficult equals easy. Oops. As soon as my typing works better for everyone. Okay. So that's all you should have for that one now. Now I'm just going to test that, and I'm just going to show you what we can see right now. Oops. What is my error? I've got an error somewhere, do I? Yep, so it's not changing anything just yet, and that's fine. One of the things I want to be able to see is it actually registering that issue? I must have had that one. Okay, so we had I had a bracket issue. I just deleted it. It's fixed now though, guys. So we did see with our little character moving up and down that nothing had happened just yet. So I'm going to show you a piece of code that's not actually going to help us right now, but it's going to, it's not going to actually do anything more for the project, but it is actually going to help us determine, are we coding it correctly? So I'm going to push stop, and now I've actually left that bit of code in there for you. So if I just take out these 2 comments, you can see that I've got a piece of code now that says string test equals convert to string VSB difficulty dot value message box dot show. Okay, so basically what that's going to do is whenever I move this little scroll bar up and down, it's going to show the current value of where the little box is between the 2 arrows, and it's going to present that as an output statement, or it's going to show it to me in a message box. So it hasn't got the message box yet, but notice when I click on it, it shows me a 0. if I keep moving it down, okay, you can see it's now set to 3. It's a bit hard to move it up and down because I've actually got my cursor on it, and every time I move it, it changes. But now it's set to 6. Move it further down again. It's now down to 8. Okay, so you get the idea about how it's actually showing me the different levels of the value wherever I'm currently up to. Okay, so I'm just going to take that one back out. You can keep it there if you want. It's a good helpful test to be able to see if something's being moved back and forth. Now, the most important reason, or the reason we did test that, was because these values here are determined by what value there is in the scroll bar. Okay, dot value greater than 4, dot value greater than 1. So in order to be able to do these next bits, I need to actually use the value of the scroll bar to tell me what's going on. And we're going to create a switch statement, okay? And I think I showed you one, but I'm going to show you one that has a lot more detail this time around. So the first switch statement, it simply starts with the word switch, and we're talking about the difficulty level. So we're referring this time to what our current state is in that difficult situation. Okay, not sure why that just happened then. Just wait. No, that'll be all right. Okay, so the first one is I want a case, and the case is going to be all the values that we gave to our possible difficult level. So the first one was extreme. Now, if it's extreme, these are the 4 settings I want to have. So if it's extreme, I want to turn on snake, and I want to have these 3 all disabled, because snake is going to be our hardest project. So I want that one to be the one that's available, and these 3 to be turned off. So a pretty straightforward concept, but basically you just turn off all of the buttons that you don't want by having enabled set to either false or true, depending on all of them. So this time I want, next one I'm going to have is texting, and I want that to be enabled as false. I want my decryptor to be enabled as false, and I want my triangle to be enabled as false. Oops. Oh, goodness. Okay, so I've got case extreme and button like that, and I'm going to just put a break in after that as well. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to copy all of these, and we're going to make it the same for all of them. So this first one, this is going to be activate snake. Next one is going to be activate texting. Oops, I've got a typo there. That's not a semicolon, by the way. That's not a semicolon, that's just a colon. All right, activate testing. Okay, now I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to copy all of these again. I'm going to paste them under that. Now with the texting, the snake needs to be turned back off again, and the texting needs to be turned on. Okay, scroll down, and the next one I want is activating the decryptor. And I'm going to paste all of those. That one is false. The decryptor is true. And the last one is going to be activate triangle. That one is false, and the triangle is true. Okay, I think that should be all of them. Good, yep, those are done. Okay, so I'll just test that one for us now. When I click on play, what I should have now is I can click on my triangle, and my triangle form opens. Don't worry that this doesn't do anything yet, we haven't coded that yet. Okay, but as I scroll down, you can see I've got, oh, the snake's working. But why haven't I got the other one? I might just click stop. I've got some error right now. Okay, it was a pretty simple error, one that we've all forgotten. Oh, hopefully you guys noticed and you did better than I did. So instead of doing activate snake and putting the code straight under, I actually forgot to put the case in. So under activate testing, we actually want case that's going to be hard. Oops, that side. under Activate Decryptor, want medium. Notice it tabbed automatically for me, nice and helpful. Under that one, it's obviously easy. Okay, so now we'll play and test that one as well. Okay, you can see now as I scroll through, the decryptor highlighted, scroll further, the texting highlights, scroll all the way bottom, the snake. Notice as each time I move through, the other ones also no longer work. Okay, I can click on that, I can click on the decryptor, my decryptor will load up, scroll down to texting, I can click on texting, and I can keep going up and down as many times as I need. Okay, I'll stop that one. Now I'm just going to go right back to the top and I'm going to show you the full code again in case you've missed it. Alright, so the first thing we did under the public partial class was the Boolean variable for swapBilly and the string for difficult. As I scroll down, I've created under my timer a image called ImageBilly, and basically we swap. If a Billy had eyes glowed, we swap back to the non-glow. If they weren't glowing, we swap to the glowing one. Okay, then we set that picture box to be whichever value we've currently got. As we move our vertical scroll bar, we test the value of it, okay, and we assign an extreme, hard, or medium, or easy, and use a switch statement to determine whether the case is easy, medium, hard, or extreme, and turn the buttons on as needed. Now, you're probably wondering why I separated it into an if condition and a case statement. I could have quite easily just put all of these codes into that section there like that, and that would have worked. But as I said, this is sometimes I show you things that are actually less efficient but better so that you can see different ways that you can solve the problems. Okay, so that's the end of the main template file, the project. Sorry, not the template file, the Splashpage, the GameKeeper one. So you should be able to have now with your character with his little flashing eyes as well. You can see that my little red eyes are going up and down, or on and off, followed by the decryptor, texting, snake, and triangle buttons becoming enabled and disabled depending on the position of the scroll bar. Okay, thanks guys. Make sure you save your work. We're going to move on to the triangle in the next demo lesson. Cheers.